Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Max Money bringing another Raid Shadow Legends video. We are fresh off the Titus Blackplume fusion, and a lot of viewers have been asking me, is this guy worth building for Chimera Clan Boss if you don't have a Wixwell? Short answer is, absolutely. I was able to put together a team that was able to do it. However, it's definitely not as easy as with the old Vault Keeper. So in today's video, I'll be breaking down how the team works, showing you key moments from the run, and finally going over the builds, along with discussing viable replacements for the champs on the team. So with that, let's get into it. Now, most of the hype surrounding Titus Blackplume has been around this A2, which gets a damage boost based on the value of the shield on Titus. So for the composition today, while there is no Wixwell, we have still built an Infinity Shield composition using Brogni in this case to get the most out of that A2 on Titus. So it's your basic Infinity Shield team composition. Gets used on Demon Lord Clan Boss. It's been around for a long time. The challenge with this, in Chimera specifically, is that you only have 65 turns to do all your damage. So if you're not using Wixwell to grow the shields, you have to make sure Brogni can hit really hard in order to make sure that shield gets its maximum value so that Titus can be hitting as hard as possible. If you run out of turns, then you will not one key. So if you're going to be using Brogni instead of Wixwell, this becomes a much more gear-dependent team composition in order to one key. And the way it all works together is Brogni uses his A3 to put a protected shield buff on everybody on the team. At that point, Mad Hatter, Krisk, and Androc all use their buff extenders in order to make sure that shield never falls off. And then Brogni will continually use his A2 during the fight, which grows the shield from the damage, and then Titus uses that enormous shield and his A2 to lay huge hits on the Chimera. So with that, let's get right into the run. Now, I recorded this earlier. We're going to be watching it on 2x speed. I'll just be talking through it. So in the beginning, Krisk is going to put up a shield as part of his passive. We want to make sure that gets stripped off because the shield that we want to be growing is Brogni's protected one. Now, Androc does bring increased resistance and strengthen, and he is in a protected set, so some of them that you see out there are protected. But the key here for me to set this up in the beginning, so a little bit of micromanagement necessary, and that was to make sure that I had all my necessary buffs up on everybody. So increased speed on as many champions as possible. I wanted to have increased resistance, increased and strengthen from Androc, and then I wanted to make sure that the protected shield was on there from Brogni. After that, I started using all the extending abilities, so the A2 from Krisk, A3 from Mad Hatter, and Androc's A2 as well that you just saw right there. And then at that point, all I'm trying to do is get as many Cavern's Grasp or A2s from Brogni as possible so that we can grow that shield, that protected shield, as quickly as possible so that Titus can start doing his damage. Now, one caution that I will give is if you have anybody on your team that brings continuous heal, just make sure that you have all the buffs that you need up on your team before they start cluttering up the buff bar. One of the things I noticed after my run is that my Titus was actually missing increased defense, which does contribute quite a bit to his damage. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, for the Ram form, the way that I decided to go about this was to make sure that I wasn't using my A2 with Titus. I want to make sure that my team does as little damage as possible on the Ram form, specifically Titus, so that the shield can continue to grow. I knew I could hit the Ram pretty hard, but at this point, this early on, my shield, I'm trying to preserve it. I'm trying to grow it to its maximum. And if I started hitting the Ram form using that A2, I was going to lose that shield in the beginning. And every time Brogni does a Cavern's Grasp, it is precious in this run. You have to make sure that you're preserving that, that value on your shield, especially early on. Now, another big thing about the Ram form specifically, with this composition, Brogni and Titus are never going to be targeted by the duel. It's going to be your lowest crit damage. So in my case, it was Krisk. He is one of my extenders. So early on, if you spent those first few turns building up and extending the shield, you could run into a potential risk here where it could fall off because one of your extenders has been locked up in the duel and can only use their A1. So in this case, what I did was I made sure to use Titus's turn meter boost on my Mad Hatter, who has impulse gear, so that I was able to refresh and get his A3 back, his buff extend back a little bit faster, and that helped make sure that the shields didn't fall off during the first Ram form. Once you clear that, then the rest of the form, the rest of the run, at this point, for example, you're in pretty good form, and you don't really have to worry about anything dropping off, assuming that you have your speeds tuned pretty well. So in this case, I wanted to make sure Titus was slower than the rest of my speed boosters. And then, yeah, the rest of the run was smooth. I think these exact buffs that you see on here remain on my champions for the entirety of the rest of the run. Now, the only other form that I really wanted to mention with this run specifically is the Lion form. Since the rebalance, that has become one of the most problematic forms for a lot of people because of the massive damage that it now deals. So right there you see Hunter's Gaze was put on my Krisk. Even though my Titus is built with more defense, my Krisk in this case did manage to keep on an increased defense buff, which actually could have turned out to be a blessing because the amount of damage that the Lion form does to the target of Hunter's Gaze is massive. I mean, it's huge. I was doing a run before this where I had a massive shield towards the end of the run. Second time seeing the Lion form, and Titus got one shot through the shield, through everything, because nothing can block that damage. So it was actually probably a fortunate thing that Titus didn't end up with an increased defense buff. But just know that Hunter's Gaze is going to be going on your highest defense target, and it's going to basically be chewing through that. So even if you have a massive shield, that might look deceptive because it's going to be dealing damage through that. So still make sure that you have good heals on whatever target the Lion form is going to be hitting with Hunter's Gaze. All right, we've skipped a little bit further into the run towards the transition for the Viper form, just to point out how ineffectual it is in this particular composition. And Titus's block active skills actually does a really great job with this one. He's able to put it on right away. And yeah, there's absolutely no issue in this case with the Viper form. Was not able to steal any buffs because of the increased resistance on the team and all the protected buffs. So Viper form was pretty much a free, just punching bag for the team throughout the entire run. The only potential dangerous one is holding back for the Ram form to make sure that your shield gets preserved so you can do the damage on the ultimate Lion and Viper, and then on Lion form, just making sure that you heal up whoever is going to be the Hunter's Gaze target. Here we've skipped a little bit further again into the fight, and the reason that I wanted to go here is I wanted to show how much damage we are now doing with the current shield value on the Chimera. So there we saw right around a 4 million hit with that A2 on the ultimate form. Now the shield is still growing at this point. We are more than halfway through the run, and because of the way that we're growing the shield through Brogni's Cavern's Grasp, it is a slow burn. It's a slow ramp up towards the top damage that we're going to be doing. So at this point in the run, it doesn't even look like we're going to one key it, but we still have a little bit of ways to go in terms of shield growth. All right, at this point in the run, we have achieved maximum shield value, so we're about to see how hard we're hitting with that A2 on the Lion form. 6.7 million. That was about as hard as I could get Titus to hit on this without increased defense, without increased crit damage, and in this current composition and in his current gear setup. So at this point, we're at 82 million-ish with 15 turns left to go, hitting that hard. We are well on our way to one chesting this. And here we are at the very end of the run, the last turn before we see the final scoreboard. 32 minutes and 7 seconds it took me to deal 125.66 million damage, 1.8 billion clash points. We were able to get 6 trials finished, able to earn some good mats right there. Now, this can be a pretty full auto friendly run. Not full auto, but auto friendly run, assuming you manage those first few turns by setting up the right buffs for your team, and then also managing that first Ram form transition where one of your buff extenders gets locked up, just to make sure that you're putting your turn meter boost from Titus onto the correct target. And the only other thing that I did with manual that I'm not sure how that would play out for full auto is Titus's turn meter boost on his A3. I was rotating that between all the different buff extenders, not just focusing on one. If I did do that, there is a chance maybe they would outrun some of their buffs. But in this composition, that is more problematic than in some others, because in this case, you'll notice we don't have a reviver. But with that, let's take a look at the builds and at some replacement champs. Starting with the star of the show, Titus Blackplume. We have him sitting in a 4-piece lethal and a few odds and other pieces there For total stats, we're looking at 47.6k HP, 5.7k defense, 234 speed, crit capped. Now, note about that, there is actually no reason in this specific composition to have him crit capped. If I were to rebuild him, he could have as much crit as you want to, because while under a shield, his A2 is an auto crit. So you can have him, you can absolutely just not focus on crit at all and just put the rest of it into other stats like crit damage and defense, and he'll be just fine. So this is not exactly an optimized clan boss build, but it's what I went with. So 258 crit damage, and the rest I don't really care about. For his relic, I'm using a Cat's Gaze. For his blessing, unfortunately, no blessing on him yet. But if I were to do it, I'd consider going for Heaven Cast below 6-star Awaken, and at 6-star I would definitely go with Crushing Rend. And then for his masteries, we have the following. Now, I have not yet posted my Titus champion guide on my channel, but look for that within the next couple of days on my channel. Starting with the first of my 3 buff extenders, I'm using Androc the Glorious. He is a 9-piece protection. His stats are as follows: 71k HP, 4.4k defense, 277 speed, and then the rest I don't really care about on him. He is built with a little bit of crit rate and crit damage, just to synergize a little better with his passive, but other than that, not really necessary. He's using a Journal of Necrotos as his relic. They recently changed his A3 to add turn meter, so buffed him a little bit. Then for his blessing, he is using Intimidating Presence. And for his masteries, I am using the following. I do not have an Androc the Glorious guide on my channel, but if you would like to see one, let me know down in the comments below. Next up is Krisk the Ageless, one of the old schools. He is sitting in a cursed set. I use him in one of my Hydra teams, along with Perception. Total stats you have right here. For his relic, I'm using a Gilded Dragonstone. For his blessing, Cruelty. He's my highest cruelty user on the team. And for his masteries, we have the following. I do not have a Krisk guide on my channel, but again, let me know down in the comments below if you'd like to see one. And my final buff extender is the Mad Hatter. We are sitting in 3 sets of Impulse. Total stats are right here. We are using Molten Deathbell as our relic. We have a Brimstone Blessing that we're bringing that smite to the fight. And for my masteries, we have the following. And I do have a Hatter guide on my channel if you're curious about other ways to build it. And last, definitely not least, is Underpriest Brogni. We have him sitting in a 6-piece Merciless and 2-piece Pinpoint in accessories. For total stats, we're looking at the following. For my relic, once again, a Cat's Gaze. For my blessing, Heaven Cast. And for masteries, we have the following. No guide on Brogni on my channel, but you know the drill. Let me know down in the comments below if you'd like to see one. So now let's talk about how you can actually build this squad without using those exact champions. Now, Titus is the whole point of the video. He is the fusion that enables this to work the way that it does. And we already know that for when it comes to shield growth, you're pretty much limited to either Brogni or Wixwell. Now, Brogni is going to be much tougher to make work on Chimera specifically. In Hydra, less noticeable. Demon Lord Clan Boss, less noticeable. But with that 65 tight turn limit, definitely more problematic with Brogni. Scores are going to be much lower than with Wixwell. Buff extenders, you have a ton to choose from for any kind of Infinity Shield composition. Just a few examples. Lady Mikage obviously is one that you can fuse. Hatter, we did feature him here, but he was a fusion from last year. A few other standouts, a few common names when it comes to Clan Boss, Demon Lord Clan Boss teams for Infinity Shield. We have Demitha, Anchorite, Aniri, a couple other ones you can mention, Sandslash, Survivor, both the Rancid. Any one of those is going to bring something really valuable Demitha in this case also brings block buffs for the ram form, so you might be able to get away with not having your shield go down, so you don't have to pull your punches on the ram form. You might be able to find some way to sneak fear into there. Maybe that way you can just completely negate a lot of that reflect damage. Aniri would be bringing a nice reviver into the composition, so you wouldn't have to worry about, or you wouldn't have to end the run if somebody got one shot, for example, through Hunter's Gaze on the lion form. A lot of different options to go for, but this composition is primarily enabled by Titus, Wixwell, Brogni. After that, you have a lot of different options to choose from. And there you have it, everybody. Titus and Brogni bringing the Infinity Shield to Chimera Clan Boss, 1 key Ultra Nightmare. If you liked today's video, please consider liking, subscribing for more content in the future. Let me know down in the comments below if there's any other showcases or guides that you'd like to see on the channel. Thank you for watching today's video. Thank you for your time. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.